Greetings to everyone out there in the NoDQ galaxy. Welcome to NoDQ video here on NoDQ.com and the YouTube channel, youtube.com/AaronRiftNoDQ. We have WWE Money in the Bank weekend. It is upon us. NoDQ.com will have you updated with all the latest news, rumors, and of course, live coverage. I will be there in Chicago for NXT and Money in the Bank. But in the meantime, I got your questions from twitter.com/AaronRift using the hashtag NoDQTurns20. Got this one here from Boogeyman79. With Chris Jericho winning the IC belt in New Japan, do you think that he will sign there or a part-time thing? And if he goes back to WWE, do you think he should keep his heel persona that he has in New Japan? That is a very good question, and right now there's a lot of speculation about Jericho and when he's actually going to defend the Intercontinental title, the New Japan version that he won at Dominion. Jericho publicly stated that he is not going to be at the Cow Palace show and he's not planning to do any shows in the United States other than WWE just to keep Vince and WWE happy. He also has Fozzy dates, which makes you wonder, when is he going to defend the title? When will that happen? I suspect sooner than later he will be back in WWE, just a matter of when there's a good storyline for him and when he feels there's a good opportunity to come back. He may or may not come back as the current heel character he's doing. He might come back as a babyface because he was a heel for most of his previous WWE run. One would think he would come back as a face. You never know with Jericho, though. I think it'll just depend on how he's feeling and what he wants to do. And knowing Jericho, he's always looking to change things up. And who knows? He might turn babyface before his New Japan run ends. And then he might want to go back to being a heel in WWE. You just don't know. But I think whatever he does, he'll want to come back and do something different than what he was doing before. Got this one here from Alfredo. Hey bro Aaron, do you think that with the success Chris Jericho is having in New Japan, when Vince calls him for an obvious return to WWE, will allow him creative control with his feuds and opponents? That would be awesome. I think Jericho already has had some degree of creative control during his last WWE run. I mean, that feud with Kevin Owens, it felt like those guys were able to go out there and do their own thing. It did not come off like it was something that is heavily scripted. Jericho might have already brought this up. I'm not sure exactly, but I feel like with that feud, Jericho could do what he wanted to do. And, you know, the list of Jericho, he was just on fire with that. So yeah, I think Jericho, more than most people in WWE, will have that kind of freedom. He will not have to recite scripts word for word. He can do bullet points and that sort of thing. And again, I think Jericho will come back if there's a good opportunity for him. And yeah, I think WWE will let him do the type of storyline that he wants to do. Otherwise, there's really no need for him to come back. There's no need for him to return and just toe the company line and do exactly what they say. If he's going to come back, I think he wants to make a big impact, the biggest impact possible, and be able to have fun. I think for him, it's more about having fun than making money at this stage of the game. So yeah, that has to be a factor, being able to come back and have that creative freedom. Otherwise, you know, it's not fun when you're having to just follow a script and not have that ability to come up with your own ideas and think outside the box. Got this one here from WrestleCore. Do you think Chris Jericho will retire in New Japan? I certainly hope not, because I do not like the New Japan product at all and don't want him to waste too much time over there. Ooh. Though it certainly seems that's what will happen. I don't think he will retire in New Japan. I'm sure you'll be happy to hear this, but I suspect he will be back in WWE. Again, I feel it will be when he's ready to come back. But he's not burning any bridges. He's not working New Japan shows in the United States, unless, of course, he's swerving everybody. That's always a possibility. But I feel like he will end his career in WWE. He'll go into the Hall of Fame. Maybe he'll even have one last run. Maybe one more run as world champion. Never say never. But I feel Jericho will finish up in WWE. He's just doing New Japan because it keeps him fresh. He can go to Japan and be a fresh face there. And he's gone from WWE right now. So when he returns, he'll be a fresh face again. He can have new people to feud with, new storylines. Jericho is a very smart guy. He's a great businessman. He knows what he's doing. He's a pro. And I'm sure he will do what's best for him. But yeah, I think coming back to WWE and having a final run is best for business. Got this one from Aztec. With Ring of Honor making the announcement that they will be running a show at Madison Square Garden, do you think it would be a good idea to run the Madison Square Garden for Supercard of Honor during WrestleMania weekend? It could pack the place with a stacked card. Oh man, Vince would not be happy about that. Now, let's not jump to conclusions here. I don't think that that is something that is set in stone yet. I believe AAA has an event set up for Madison Square Garden, but Ring of Honor, they're just in talks right now. Who knows what's going to happen with that? WWE might decide to change the relationship with Madison Square Garden and go back to running TV shows there again. That could certainly happen, especially now that WWE has the deal with Fox. And we know how petty WWE can get, so would not surprise me if WWE decides to pay the extra bucks to Madison Square Garden and come back for TV tapings. If Ring of Honor did secure Madison Square Garden, yeah, I think the only way you could really pull that off and fill the crowd would be to run during WrestleMania weekend. But even then, WWE would have a stacked show of their own against Ring of Honor, and it could potentially hurt attendance for both promotions, even though you have tens of thousands of fans in the area. But it's New York, so you have to look at it from different perspectives. Another option, if not WrestleMania weekend, would be to possibly run a joint show with New Japan or do something with Cody, some kind of joint promotion show, Ring of Honor / All In, whatever. There are possibilities, but yeah, WrestleMania weekend seems like it would be really interesting if they could pull it off and pack that arena. Man, I would love to be a fly on the wall in Vince's office if that ever happens. Got this one here from Mr. Yuck. How long do you see Shinsuke Nakamura lasting in WWE? Would he be better off in some sort of faction or with a manager? I think he's doing fine, except for how lame this storyline with AJ Styles has been. Overall, I think he's doing good for himself. He hasn't really had any classic standout matches, but I feel he does have some star power, and he has been involved in some high-profile feuds. He did win the Royal Rumble. He did have a match at WrestleMania against AJ. But yeah, he hasn't really had that career, WWE career at least, defining match. And hopefully he gets that. He is getting up there age-wise, so at some point, what do you do with the guy? Do you put him in a tag team? Do you give him a heel manager? Do you turn him back babyface? What do you do with the guy in the long haul? Will he be WWE champion? We'll find out at Money in the Bank. We'll see how serious WWE is about him. If he doesn't win the title, then I'm going to wonder, what will WWE do with this guy next? Will he move down the card? Will they shake up his character in some other way? It's going to be really interesting to see how things play out between WWE and Nakamura in the coming months. Got this one here from Paul Jackson. What are your thoughts on Corey Graves' comments about CM Punk following his UFC 225 loss? I did touch upon this with the NoDQ panel when we did the NoDQ review this week. I feel like if it's true, then that is messed up for CM Punk to basically not talk to a friend because that friend is still working for a company that he's at odds with. Now, I have a little bit of trouble believing Corey Graves just because of the Booker T incident and then the timing of it, going on this rant immediately after CM Punk's loss at UFC 225. I feel like it's more of a publicity stunt by Graves, because by posting that when he did, the most eyeballs are going to read it. People are going to check out his Twitter. He's going to gain followers. His rant is going to make all the news sites, including NoDQ.com. I feel like it was a business move on his part. And maybe there are some hard feelings between him and CM Punk. And maybe he's just turning up the volume just to do business, just to boost his name and get his name in the headlines. Got this one here from HLN. I think the day WWE fans turned against Roman Reigns was 2015 Royal Rumble. Your thoughts? Him beating Daniel Bryan marked him. That was certainly a very defining moment in Roman Reigns' career, not for the right reasons. Although, money-wise, maybe it was a defining moment for him because he would headline the first of, 4 WrestleMania main events? I think a few weeks prior to that, when he came back from his injury, I think that promo he did, the Suffering Succotash line, I think that promo was the first one where fans really started to turn against him. And maybe if Daniel Bryan wasn't so hot at that point, maybe Roman Reigns would have gotten a better reaction. But yeah, Daniel Bryan being in the Rumble and being eliminated that quickly, that was not helping matters at all. I also feel when Reigns came back, see, the thing about Reigns is you had the Shield breakup and then you started this feud between Reigns and Rollins, and then Reigns got injured. Then when he came back, he was immediately thrusted into the main event. He immediately declared himself for the Royal Rumble match, and he really had no build-up as a character. He just went from the Shield breakup, got hurt, coming back, all of a sudden he's being groomed for the top spot at WrestleMania. And I think maybe that rubbed some fans the wrong way. But I think it's a combination of that and Daniel Bryan's involvement and how hot Bryan was, and then the crowd just being disappointed with Bryan being eliminated from the Rumble, and in quick fashion, for that matter. Got this one here from Jason. We all know guys like Mr. Perfect, Roddy Piper, and the $1 Million Man are some of the greats to never hold the WWE Championship. But who do you think are the top names in the modern era who never held the WWE Championship? Interesting question. I do not think I have gotten this one before. When I think of current guys, Samoa Joe is the top name that I think of as far as most talented guys that have not been WWE Champion yet. Balor was not the WWE Champion. He was the Universal Champion for a cup of coffee. Unfortunately, due to his injury, he had to drop it right away. But if we're just talking about strictly the WWE title, it would be Joe or Finn Balor. Those are the two that haven't gotten it yet. And I think both of them have the potential to be WWE Champion. I think Joe, if he wins Money in the Bank, he very well could be the next WWE Champion. Joe versus AJ Styles, Joe versus Daniel Bryan. I mean, I feel like Joe on SmackDown has a real shot at becoming champion and having some really good feuds if WWE could actually write a good feud against guys like AJ and Bryan. This one comes from Aaron Lewis. Hey Aaron, on occasion, would you like to see matches end by knockout as opposed to the regular roll-ups and pins, DQs, and countouts? To some extent, it can add a little bit of realism to a match like when Owens beat Zayn for the NXT title. Yes, I agree 100%. I think back to like the old WWE video games like Day of Reckoning, where you could knock out your opponent. Actually, I think No Mercy had it as well, where you could win by a knockout. So yeah, I would love to see more knockouts in WWE where the guy's out and he cannot answer a count of 10, or the referee calls off the match because he's in no condition to continue. I'm definitely a fan of it just to change things up and have a little bit more variety when it comes to the finishes, because yeah, too often we're seeing these roll-up finishes, which I'm not a fan of it when it's done too much. Things should always be done in moderation. Too much is always a negative as far as I'm concerned. You need to pick the right times to do certain finishes, and doing the fruit roll-up every single week, yeah, it just shows there's not much creativity when it comes to coming up with finishes. But adding knockouts to the mix, I think, does make things a little bit more interesting for sure. Got this one here from James. Worst ever Raw opening segment, and I think he's talking about this past Monday with the ladder match. Didn't build any more for Money in the Bank. It just made them all look and sound like children. It killed any excitement I had for the pay-per-view. I think the worst part about that segment was that line by Alexa Bliss about the desperate housewives of WWE. Just a really cheesy scripted line. And yeah, the problem with that segment also was the fact that it was done last year with Jericho and Owens and all those guys. So when you do the same segment again, going back to that previous question, you do it too often, it really doesn't have as much impact as if you do it every once in a while. If they want to do this kind of promo segment 5 years from now, then go for it. But when you do it back-to-back years, it comes off as these guys really don't have any good ideas, and it's just lazy writing. I definitely wasn't a fan of it. Was it the worst Raw opening segment ever? Certainly not. There have been worse ones. Not really sure what I can think of off the top of my head, because usually those really bad opening Raw segments I tend to forget. Maybe something with Stephanie, because every time I hear her music, I'm like, click. I don't click, but in my head, I wish I could click. All right, that'll wrap it up for this edition of NoDQ Video. Again, stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest regarding Money in the Bank. If you're in Chicago, come say hi this Sunday, NoDQ.com/Chicago. And I will see you guys next time for another edition of NoDQ Video.